Hi, everyone. We're going to get started. Again, this is Madeline Chassel. I'm the policy director here at the Secular Policy Institute. And if you're just joining us on the call today for the first time, you should know that I have everyone on mute at the moment so that we can all hear each other better. But if you need to speak up, please press *6 at any time if you're calling in. And you can also press your microphone if you've joined us on the web. As well, there is a chat window on the web, and I'll be contacting those of you who have joined us online periodically through the chat window. At any time, you can reach out to me directly. There's an administrator drop-down. It says organizers only if you'd like to contact just me with any comments or questions, or to be taken off mute because you can't do it yourself at the moment. Or you can contact the entire audience with any relevant information that we're talking about. But we'll go ahead and get started. This is our 6th monthly coalition call, and we have a couple of guest speakers today. And other than that, I will let Edwina lead the way if she is on the call. Edwina, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. I'm hoping everyone else can too. And if you are online, feel free to tell us you can hear us in the chat window now. Otherwise, I'm assuming since you're loud and clear, Edwina, that we can get started.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madeline. Well, welcome everybody. We have an action-packed agenda, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know we've got quite a few speakers that are going to be coming on in the second half of the hour. But just a little bit about what we've been working on over the last 2 months. We did not have our call the first Thursday in August because we heard from so many of you that you'd be on vacation, which is quite understandable. So now we're having, we did have our call in September. Now we're on to our October call. We continue our letters. We're putting out several letters every week. We try to do a U.S. domestic letter that we send mainly, if it's too U.S. focused, we'll send it just to the U.S. people. And then we do a letter that works very well for all the groups around the world. And so we have here our highlight for the last month. The last call agenda, we were focused on the Nigerian 9, the 9 people who had been sentenced to death in Nigeria because they were practicing a slightly different form of Islam. And we had some very good success there with those people in that they're now in protective custody by the federal government, and they're protecting them from the people who want to harm them. And so this month we've been very focused on trying to help our colleagues, our Freethought bloggers in Bangladesh. We've done several letters already. As a matter of fact, last night we pushed out 3 more focused on the Secretary of State, Secretary Kerry, the Secretary Johnson of Homeland Security, that's in charge of asylum and immigration, and Director Rodriguez, who actually has that portfolio with the Citizenship and Immigration Office. So those 3 letters are out right now, and we will be closing them on October the 14th and then sending them on the 15th. But the letter that we're highlighting in the agenda has to do with a letter that we sent to the UN High Commissioner about the issue with the bloggers, and hopefully we'll have a representative on the call in the second half of the call who's helping look after the bloggers and working to get asylum anywhere and everywhere we can possibly get it for them. Okay, so moving on to the next topic, which is a huge focus for today. It has to do with secular groups wanting to be very involved in their community, and in particular, the local public schools. And this is a concept that works very well around the world that we have been working on for definitely since January. So it's called Community Action Network, CAN, or Parent Teacher Community Action Network, PT-CAN. So we already have a website up under communityactionnetwork.org, and we also have ptcan.org, and they go to the same website. And basically, this concept is for secular groups that already exist or groups that want to be created, that you have a platform where you can jumpstart your group or a project where you're helping local public schools do a better job, and also finding a very meaningful activity for your secular group to get involved in. So we have put together the PTCAN mission statement, some model bylaws, a charter, and how PTCAN gives to schools, how they support them. And those documents are all on the website. Now, we're going to be hearing from Gail Miller a little bit later in the call about this concept of how do we jumpstart, how do we get into the public schools in the U.S. and around the world. And so we've come up with a great idea, and it has to do with teaching critical thinking. It's something that everyone needs access to. You can call it creative and critical thinking, so perhaps it doesn't sound so negative. I've been on the phone and in meetings with the critical thinking experts over the last couple of weeks, getting information on how we can pull this off. So it is something that we will be talking about with Gail Miller, who is in leadership with Atheist Alliance International and lives in Vancouver, and is willing to spearhead the international portion, where I'll be spearheading the U.S. domestic portion. And we'll be talking about our first pilot. In the U.S., we've identified 6 or 7 groups that are willing to pilot the project, and internationally, Gail is most interested in starting a pilot in the country of Guatemala. The next topic has to do with the World Future Guide, which is coming out soon, and I will save that for Johnny Montserrat because he is pulling together those chapters. We have some really good original pieces that have been written by a number of the SBI fellows, and mainly policy advice for decision makers, and we'll be sending that out to everyone in the House and the Senate, and then making it also available for other decision makers in other countries and also the UN. As far as the schedule, the next call will be the first Thursday in November, which is November the 5th. Reminding everyone, we're always looking for national and regional leaders to come on and report what's happening in those regions, and also identify issues. We've had some really good success with Hugo, who brought to our attention the issue of secular education going by the wayside in Argentina, and we'll be hearing from him also. All right, so now we're down to the Fellows Corner, so I'll turn it back over to Madeline, who does an excellent job of looking after the Fellows.
Thank you, Edwina. Yes, I'm just going to give a brief update of what you could all see if you're looking at your shared screen on our agenda, which is on the website at /conference call on the future of the secular movement. And I've shared that for you also in the chat window. But we just wanted to highlight the current and most exciting activities of many of our fellows. Ian Morris will be presenting his new book, Foragers, Farmers, and Fossil Fuels, How Human Values Evolve, at a newly announced engagement next year. Elliot Cohen, who works on applied ethics, mass media, and philosophical counseling, has a new article on protecting the freedom and dignity from technology of oppression. And he has a book on the technology of oppression that's been getting a lot of media attention lately. Very interesting read. Marty Klein has 10 lessons that humanists should know about sex. It's quick and not dirty, and Marty Klein's work is really fantastic and has a wonderful humanist perspective. He's also very involved in sex education, so keep an eye out for his work. David Sloan Wilson is sitting with Cornell economist Robert Frank to discuss his latest book, The Darwin Economy, and there's more on that on the agenda. Taslima, if you all follow Taslima Nasreen, her Freethought blog is very powerful, and she's very uncompromising in sharing her humanist views. So if you haven't checked that out, there is a link to her blog on the website. John McWhorter is also a big voice in the media, and he is exploring currently why language that once was the English of its time is now headed for extinction. If you'll notice in the Daily Digest, if any of you received that, a lot of the articles we see from John McWhorter are about the emoji generation and how language dies and also how language is created. His work is very interesting and very culturally relevant. Patrick Lindenfors is reporting on the state of things constantly. His current article, Refugees Crisis, Humanists Call for a Strong and Humane EU Response. You can check that out also on the link. Amatsia Baram has a big voice in the media at the moment, giving a lot of commentary on international issues. And his report on the state of Lebanon is in his new article, Lebanon's Fragile Balance Holds Amid Political Paralysis. That's just one of many articles. Again, if you receive the Daily Digest, you'll see he's constantly giving feedback on an international level. We also have A.C. Grayling highlighted it this month. He has The Irony of Migrancy, where he challenges the reader to put themselves in the place of the migrant. Mark Juergensmeyer has a new article, What Kind of Islam Is That? Talking with refugees from ISIS. And again, he's a voice we see in the media quite often as well, particularly as Ayman Jawad al-Tamimi, constantly giving commentary on the international level, why America should aim to contain rather than destroy ISIS. So both Mark and Ayman have had very relevant commentary in the news lately. Donald R. Prothero is generating a very captivating history of life on our planet. If you've ever seen him talk, he has a fundamental insight into climate change. And he is releasing The Story of Life in 25 Fossils. So again, all of these links are available on the website. And for anyone on the shared screen now, the daily news clip is an article that I organize, and it's just a collection of other people's writings and reports from around the web, but we source them to be relevant to our interests as secular people. And you can sign up on our website in the same area that you can sign up for our original newsletter, which Johnny Montserrat will mention hopefully in his section. So you'll see at the bottom here of the sign up page, you can click on the weekly SPI newsletter, which are the original articles orchestrated by Johnny and his team. And then there's the Secular Daily Digest, which are news bites from around the web. So you can select one or both of those articles, sign up, and keep in touch with us. But we will move right along now to Johnny Montserrat's spiel. He has a lot to tell us about. And Johnny, are you on the line with us now?
Hi, I sure am.
Okay, Johnny, take it away.
Well, this month, of course, as usual, I've been working on the newsletter and social media and the website. I want to refer everyone to the resources section of the website because there you'll find a lot of interesting information. For example, you'll find our favorite books, our favorite articles, our favorite academic papers, and of course surveys from Pew and Gallup and so many other sources. Some of them, of course, written originally here at SPI. Additionally, I've been compiling the World Future Guide. This is the exciting document that we have been working on for months. We've asked our fellows to contribute their thoughts for politicians about the future of government. It's our attempt to transform our think tank from a website destination with public speakers into printed form that anyone can get access to. So we have A.C. Grayling talking about how to adapt education to the future. We have Patrick Lindenfors talking about the placebo effect that religion can have. We have Elizabeth Loftus talking about how memory and false memory can affect the law and legal proceedings. We have Mark Juergensmeyer talking about the future of religion and secularism, just basically forecasting the big picture. And then Ella Mania and Amatsia Baram talk about government, secular governments, extremist governments, the Middle East, mixing it all up. So this is a very exciting document, and we do hope to have it out soon. Notice the vagueness in the word soon I just said, but we're working on it.
Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, all right. I love it when Johnny is succinct despite all the stuff that he's doing. All right, thank you so much, Johnny. And we can move on to any public policy highlights that Edwina wants to give. Do we have you, Edwina? Remember to *6 to unmute yourself. Well, let's see if we have Hugo on the line, because Hugo could update us on our Latin America section of our public policy update if he's available. Hugo, are you there? Remember to *6 to unmute yourself or press your microphone. All right, let us try instead for David Tamayo. Are you available to give us an update? All right, I'm not discouraged by striking out. I'm going to see if we have Morgan Elizabeth Romano available to give us an update from Turkey, and otherwise we'll come back to all of you later in the call. Morgan, are you on the line? I hear someone just joined us. So let's do this. I know we have Gail Miller available, so even though it's at the end of our agenda, I would love an update, Gail, on all it is that you are working on. So Gail, if you press the microphone, if you're online, to unmute yourself, or just press *6, you can take the floor now.
Thanks, Madeline. I'm Gail Miller. I am on the board with Atheist Alliance International, and Atheist Alliance International has been active in wanting to spread secular education or get more secular education going around the world. And in talking with Edwina, I realized that her Community Action Network was a great place for us to spearhead a project we had for critical thinking, to bring critical thinking into schools around the world. I got the idea because I read somewhere that Youth for Christ were going into all these schools in Africa and providing courses and counseling. And I thought, well, if they can get into schools, well, then and do work, then certainly we could too. And the thing that we have to offer the most and the best to students around the world is critical thinking. And because Edwina was working on this in the U.S., it seemed like a natural progression for this project to go with CAN, and we would try and take it to schools around the world. And the first school or the first place we had in mind was Guatemala, because it wasn't too far away from North America, so travel and costs and other costs could be kept down. And also we have a great relationship with the Guatemala Humanistas. And they have actually a couple of high schools that that said that they would be interested in doing our critical thinking project. And now we know that there are people out there, experts on critical thinking, and so we will work with them. There's no need to reinvent the wheel and come up with our own program. So those details need to be worked out, but basically we're looking at being able to go to a school, at least for the pilot project, go to a school, present the material, and present it more than just once, like either be there for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and go take it from there after the end of the project to see how much the kids took in. We want to get it to both the teachers and the kids so that they can keep using it throughout the year. And so I have to work out the details with Edwina, and that is our project, and we hope to get it going sometime in 2000. Are there any questions on the project?
We lost a tail end of you there, Gail, but just maybe repeat your final thoughts, because we heard a little feedback and it was hard to hear.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hi, Edwina.
Yes, hi.
Okay,
Sorry,
so we
guys.
want to get the project going in 2016, especially if we're going to carry on with our plan to do it in Guatemala. I think the school year starts in January, so it would be great to get in there at the beginning. And that was one tip I received. A person quite involved in critical thinking was to do it at the beginning of the year, and so that the students and the teachers can use it throughout the semester. So we're hoping to get something going in at least 2 schools in Guatemala in early 2016.
Edwina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So
Sorry, I
Gail
was.
just, oh, that's all right. Gail just filled us in on the project idea, and we wanted to facilitate a few questions from the group. But if we don't have any, do you have any critical questions you think that Gail should explore further with everyone?
Oh, well, I've had a phone call with Gail, and we are hoping to get David Tamaya with the Hispanic Freethought Group to weigh in. And we're also hoping to get materials translated into Spanish. And of course, we've been in touch with Dr. Linda Elder with the Foundation for Critical Thinking. And we are looking for additional materials that will be able to put on the PTCAN, the Community Action Network website. And yeah, and we're also looking to work with the Evolution Institute on this because they have been very active with a school in Tampa. So like I said, we'll be working on the domestic side and then also an international side, starting with pilots, and we'll have a separate phone call to train the people and to get those groups set up going into the public schools. Okay, Madeline?
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Gail or for Edwina about this project? I'm just going to give us 10 seconds of quiet in case someone's having difficulty chiming in. Again, you can press *6 if you're on the phone, or you can click your microphone to unmute yourself. I've also shared Gail's article with you. It's actually by Alexandra Sifferlin, but it's an article that is relevant to our conversation, How to Make Schools Better for Kids. It was available on the agenda, and I've now shared it for you in the chat window. And I don't believe we have David Tamayo with us yet, but I'm going to place an announcement out to him in this chat that when he joins us, he should feel free to chime in. And I will see, we should have, yes, I believe we have Jerry Miller on the line, and he is available to speak with us on current projects at the Evolution Institute, which relates to this. So Jerry, if you want to chime in now, it would be perfect.
Great. Thank you all very much. I'm speaking through the computer, so I hope it's coming along fine.
Loud and clear.
Gail, very interested in your project. It sounds quite interesting, and the thing I'm looking at the screen about how to make schools better for kids. One of the first workshops we held, there's a paper, and I'll try to get it up to you, Madeline. Maybe you can get a link to it about the 10, I think those 10 truths for early childhood education, and it was done from an evolutionary perspective. The school, there's actually 2 projects we're working on here in Florida. One I'll call kind of a micro project, which is a classroom, and we've actually been working with a lot of faith-based schools here, and it's kind of an unusual marriage between faith-based institutions and the Evolution Institute, but it's one that we have found if we keep the eye on what the positive outcomes are for the kids, it's one that seems to work well. So actually one of them asked us recently to help enhance their science curriculum there. And so we'll be working on that, and we actually may be developing a curriculum about evolution in conjunction with faith-based schools. The approach being that evolution needs to be in the toolkit of kids, if they want to be doctors or researchers or scientists, they can't not teach kids about that. But we would also, of course, have a number of scientists on the panel to make sure that the information is valid. The big project we have started on is creating a secular school, working in partnership with one of our faith-based partners, Bible Truth Ministries, who currently has a K-12 school. Their real strength has been in being able to engage the community and the family, the kids and their family. And that's a huge issue in the schools, especially in low-income areas and communities of color, that there seems to be a lack of trust between the public school systems and the communities and the parents. And so one of the results is the parents don't get fully engaged. So Pastor Dean and his wife Suzette are able to do that and do it well. So we are putting forth a proposal. We have a document out where, in partnership, we will create we're looking at age 2 through 8-year-old school. And the rationale for those ages is the science shows those are the foundation years. You can get somebody through 8 years old with the foundation in terms of the social and emotional skills, in terms of the literacy skills, the math foundational skills, etc. They are more likely to be successful in high school and post-high school. So because of other kinds of restraints, we couldn't go further, but if we can take them through 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade, we expect that the kids will perform well. So and one of the nice things about this partnership is we have the community-based partner with Pastor Dean, Suzette Dean, and then we have a network of scientists from around the United States, including leading researchers in literacy and math education and developmental psychology and anthropology. And the approach, the pedagogical approach is, we call it learning in the wild, which is basically how do people naturally learn? What are the natural propensities for being able to learn information and apply the information, and how to generalize information? And there's actually been a fair amount of research on that, a lot of it from anthropological circles. And in pilot tests, we've had really good success with that. People who had been failing were at grade level within a year. So we're kind of excited about that. We're in the early stages. It's an open process, so if Gail or others have thoughts about this whole process, please, we'd love to hear it. Like I say, it's an open process. We have the land, we have the blueprints, and we hope to break ground sometime either later this year or early spring next year. And I hope I didn't take too much time.
Not at all. Very succinct and helpful.
Great.
Gail, Edwina, any thoughts?
At this time.
Fair enough. Anyone else on the call have any questions? Oh, there's Edwina.
Yes. I was wondering if Jerry could quickly tell us about your work in Norway.
Well, I can't quickly tell you about it, but I'll try to be succinct. This whole school thing comes out of a whole approach. Part of the reason for the existence of the Evolution Institute is really to look at quality of life issues. There's so much out there, most of it noise about what makes for good quality of life, that it's really high time that there be a science behind what the quality of life looks like. So using some indexes, the UN index and many others, you come to find out that consistently Norway is ranked number 1, number 2, or number 3, depending on the item being addressed. And it's been that way for, I guess 12, 15 years. So the project basically is asking, what is it about the Norwegian culture that allows it to become a top-ranked nation in terms of quality of life. And quality of life is measured everything from education, health, democracy, economic opportunity, freedom from red tape, etc., and so on. Well, it turns out it's a complicated question, of course, but if I can put it in kind of a small nutshell, the foundation for this seemed to be laid in the 30s through political events that occurred and fights between, I guess, the farmers and laborers and the stateholders. And through that foundation, because of that foundation, when oil was discovered, Norway is one of the few countries that decided that it should keep the income, or at least 2/3 of the income, profits from the oil, for their future. So rather than privatizing the entire industry, they set up something called a sovereign fund, and that's to fund their future. So we've been going over to Norway now, and this is led by Jerry Lieberman, who's one of the co-founders of the Evolution Institute, and he brought in Dave Wilson, the other co-founder of the Evolution Institute. We've been going over there about a year and a half now. We now have relationships with about 3 think tanks over there, 2 or 3 unions, elected officials, University of Oslo, and several other organizations to really begin to examine the question, what are the elements that go into building a good quality of life and maintaining the quality of life, and what are the threats to that. Jerry has developed a relationship with the SEIU, Service Employees International Union, and we brought them over there. So now we have an international dialogue going on between the Norwegian unions and US-based unions, as well as ourselves, a US-based think tank, and think tanks in Norway. Very exciting project. There's a lot of information on our website. A recent workshop was held last week. David is over there for 2 months as a special guest of the University of Oslo. It's, in some way, I want to make the point, as esoteric as it may sound or theoretical, the idea is just the opposite. It's a very practical way to look at what makes quality of life. A, B, what strategies can be used to implement the quality of life, and C, how do you protect those strategies once they are implemented. So by the end of this project, which will be going on a while, but probably more closely by the end of maybe 3 years, we should begin to have some pretty good publications about what goes into building a high quality of life based on that experience.
Thank you, Jerry. Does anyone have any questions for Jerry? If you do, please remember you can press *6 to unmute yourself on the phone or click your microphone.
So hi, Jerry, are you guys hoping to have a plan that will be scalable, that other countries can take and digest it and be able to attain the status that Norway has? Would that be the takeaway?
Well, I see it more, the analogy I like to draw for these things is kind of like a fake book in jazz, where you can identify critical elements and you can identify what they look like. But even within an area that may be seen as relatively homogeneous as the Scandinavian countries, there are different cultural aspects and different approaches, and I don't know that it could be built. I'm not sure it could be a one-to-one correspondence, but I think by laying out clearly what the Norway experience is, how that differs from, in this case, the experience in the U.S. and certain variables, that we can identify some of these activities, and that provides a roadmap that people will then have to adapt for their local environment. I think that's probably the most realistic approach.
Great.
Thank you. Fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry and Gail. We are going to reach out now to Margaret Downey. She's with the Freethought Society, and they have a project cooking called the Secular Prison Liberty or Library Project. I think there might be a typo, but maybe I'm wrong. So why don't you tell us, Margaret?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, greetings, everyone. I would like to tell you that it is not really a project yet. When I talked to Edwina, I told her about a situation we are facing with communications we have had with prisoners. And I'll tell you real briefly what happened. The Richard Dawkins book, The God Delusion, provided people with the address and name of our organization, and it was stocked in every prison across the United States. So I began getting letters from prisoners right after the publication of the book, and we have hundreds of them. Some would make you cry, and others would are just outreach saying, please send me more information, please send me literature. So I had talked to Edwina about an idea, and frankly, I do not have a staff. We are all volunteers. And the idea and the concept would be this, that we would love to find a way to hire a student intern or, a student here at Westchester University, a university located close by to my home office, to help us go through the letters, make a database of every prison that we've heard from, then to contact the prison library and say, we have letters from a prisoner in your facility that has outreached for literature. Or we might have, 10 people from that same prison. And we request that all of the materials we will be sending will be stocked in the library. But it's just not the Freethought Society literature that I'd like to see being sent to these prisons. I'd like us to have a cooperative effort from every national group that once we get approval in these prison libraries, that all the literature being sent, complimentary of course, would be stocked in those facilities. Because, I am of the mind that if people were actually taught that they only have a one and only life to live, that they would be making much better ethical decisions and realizing that they could really mess up their lives by committing a crime. So I want to not only influence the public at large about this, but also that it's important with the prisons population, in that we hope to increase the rate of recidivism, that, with literature for critical thinking and for humanism and appreciation of your one and only life, it could actually help keep people from being sent back to prison. And yes, I know that the non-theist community is less than 1% of the prison population, but it might be a very good project for the overall good of society to help people make better decisions.
Margaret, it's Madeline. Can
Yes.
you hear me? Yes, I think this idea is so wonderful, and I think your problem that you're addressing in this is severalfold. We're talking about a prison community that's mostly religious. That's true, which might be part of the problem, and yet we also are talking about the people who have access to do service at these prisons are largely faith-based organizations. In fact, I I do know a little bit about the prison outreach work being done across the nation, and it seems to mostly be faith-based. Those are the groups that get admission in to do their service work, anything from 12-step to the kinds of literature that's probably making its way in. And I think it's a great concept to be offering an alternative perspective. That's the whole basis of our education and our critical thinking motives, is to enlighten not just from one perspective, but to offer a contrary perspective to get people thinking with an open mind. So I think this work is very important. I'd like to see this happen. Any other thoughts from the group? Yes, Margaret.
Unfortunately, the only way it's going to happen is if I can qualify for a grant of some sort to help me hire a student specifically assigned to this project. Hi, it's Edwina. So I had a meeting just 2 weeks ago with the former deputy director, who is now the current advisor to the director for the Federal Bureau of Prison, and he's a PhD psychologist. And we were talking about this, and really interested in supplying materials, and also even doing some teaching with regard to critical thinking. And we followed up with a paper to Tom Kane that Dr. Linda Alder did with the Foundation for Critical Thinking. And so Dr. Kane has offered to give us the information, the address and contacts for the libraries for the Federal Bureau of Prison, which has about 210,000 people in those facilities. Now, as far as the state, that gets more complicated because, each state, we have 50 states, each one has a different system, and there are even, some county systems also. So yes, it is a big, daunting project, but I think it's something that we certainly should embrace and figure out a way to help Margaret realize her a great idea here. And I know that through the Center for Prison Reform and also through the Sacred Policy Institute, we're willing to do what we can and get some resources up. Like, for example, we could at least put up the addresses and the contacts for the libraries for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. When we get those in-house, we can get them up on our website, and we can certainly, yes, Margaret?
The problem, Edwina, is that even if we have an address for the prison, each bit of literature that needs to be sent to the library has to be approved.
Well, when I was talking to the gentleman with the Federal Bureau of Prison, it could be approved centrally. So we were mainly talking about critical thinking. We were talking about critical thinking materials. We weren't talking about materials on humanism or atheism, but certainly can go back and talk to them about other materials. Yeah, no, I certainly understand what you're saying. So it's a big project, but it's something that's worthwhile. So I would just love to hear if anybody else on the line has any ideas or has any experience working with prison systems around the world. I know we've been doing research on other systems in other countries, and speaking of Norway, they have probably one of the best systems in the world that we should all model after in the future.
Any questions? Any thoughts? Any ideas for Margaret? All right, well, I think it's best to keep the dialogue open, Margaret and Edwina, and I'm sure that there is more brainstorming to do, but certainly if Edwina on her end can look into some centralized approval for the kinds of literature that we'd be considering spreading, that seems like a good first step, or at least one of the steps that we can come up with.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. And I just want to see now, in the last few minutes that we have, if Bonya Ahmed was able to join us. Bonya, are you on the call? Bonya is working to help at least one, if not several, I think you said, Edwina, of the endangered bloggers get some relocation assistance.
Oh, yes, all of them. So there's a list of a little bit more than 50 that we're working with, of people who are on the kill list. They're in Bangladesh. And I know Canada, there's a group in Canada and a big group in Australia that's very helpful, in the UK. And of course, we're trying to help in the US. And they have some central leaders who are helping to orchestrate. So we're trying everything under the sun that we can come up with to try to get people out one by one. You know, a few people have fled and gotten into Afghanistan or gotten into Nepal. And I've done quite a few meetings myself, even met with the ambassador from Bulgaria, and their population's been going down, so they've had a really high acceptance rate of asylum seekers. And she basically said if we could get them there, they certainly most likely would be allowed to stay and be on the track for citizenship. But, you know, getting people there is the problem.
Oh, Edwina, can I ask a few questions? This is Gail.
Hi, Gail.
Sure.
Because at AAI, we're getting requests all the time, and in the last couple of weeks, we've had some really desperate emails from Bangladeshi bloggers. Now, one did go to Nepal, and there is a UNHCR representative in Kathmandu, but we always, some of our people have not had the best of luck with the UN, and we've had to write a letter to them in Geneva asking to ensure that they're giving fair representation to non-believers. But anyways, so I'm very interested in this. So you're saying Bulgaria is a good place to go?
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, if you look at the acceptance rate for asylum seekers in Europe, theirs is in the 95 percentile, and they have been losing population over the last 3 or 4 years. But of course, you know, things have changed quite recently, and that they've had the flood of people from Syria and from Iraq.
Right.
Yeah, so we're just trying every possible angle. We're even you know, looking to get the females as au pairs, getting them to register with some of the au pair sites so they can you know, come to the U.S. and be safe and go to school and be au pairs. You know, it's all perfectly legal. We even sent an invitation to a blogger, you know, sort of the next person on the kill list, an invitation to come and speak at some of our events and meet with members of Congress. And their application was denied with the embassy, the U.S. Embassy in Dhaka, saying that Secular Policy Institute has brought all these people in and then they don't go back, you know, which is completely false. We haven't helped anyone get asylum. We were brand new, so it's just an uphill battle. But we're trying every possible angle.
Yeah, and
there
I know
is a group. We have like a little email group, a core group of 8 or 9 people that we're sort of working on this in an orchestrated manner, and we're getting updates, and we have a list of all the bloggers and their information, you know, like whether or not they're married, and if they have children, if they're single or male or female, and what they do, and if they're willing to leave or not. You know, some of them are not interested in leaving.
Edwina, the 3 people that, I think it's 3 or 4 that we've dealt with, they all wanted to leave. Is it possible to be part of that group, and I can see whether these people are on your list as well?
Sure, yes. So I will just start copying you on the email chain that we have. You know, our group, it's the core people in Australia, some core people in the U.S., someone from Amnesty International, and then we will, loop you guys in also. And it's, a few people out of the UK. So those are the main people in the main group that are trying to orchestrate, just kind of, one by one, everybody that we can get out and help them.
Okay, because I'm going to be talking with Center for Inquiry in Canada, and they're working quite hard on this as well, and they've taken it to the media in Canada. So that would be great because, yeah. I'm wondering, Bulgaria, because you always need a travel visa to get out of the country. Do you know anything about how easy it is to get a travel visa to Bulgaria?
Well, the problem that we've been having is that when the bloggers go from embassy to embassy and they file their applications, now no one has gone to the Bulgarian embassy yet, to my knowledge. The government in Bangladesh has basically kind of alerted these embassies that they don't want these people to leave, and they're looking for them also. So the government there is certainly not helping; they're hindering. And the people, the frontline people at the embassies, are Bangladeshis. Like the person who denied the application for the blogger that was next on the kill list, who had a very legitimate reason, to come just for 3 months, all expenses paid, to the U.S., just try to immediately get him out of harm's way. The person who denied that and made up these false statements about Sacred Policy Institute, is a Bangladeshi civilian that's being paid by the embassy, to do these interviews all day, every day. So that's the problem that we're facing. So we're going to have to kind of go above that pay grade and start emailing and calling and sending letters, like, to the U.S. ambassador in Bangladesh, or, the Bulgarian ambassador there, and things like that. So when I met with the Bulgarian ambassador here in the U.S., it was a very positive meeting, and I gave her the information and the materials about the people that we were trying to help. And, she just basically said that if we can figure out a way to get them out of Bangladesh and into Bulgaria, then they could go through their system there. So the problem is getting them out.
Yeah, that is the big problem. Okay, thanks, Edwina. And that would be great because we might be all working on similar cases.
Yes. So we'll start. I'll loop you in with our little group that's working on this. Okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you both. On the website, I directed our attention, if you're online, to our advocacy campaigns tab on our website. This is where you can find several of our sign-on letters that we're doing right now to try and get these Bangladeshi authors asylum. If you click here, and I'll show you this online, if you select this article, you'll see that we have several letters, one to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. We've also now started letters to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, to the Secretary of State, and to the Department of Homeland Security Director of Citizenship and Immigration Services. So we're really trying to work all angles to get Bangladeshi bloggers asylum, either here in the US or elsewhere. And I'll also include this link in the chat. And I want to open up the floor with our last minute or two for any questions or any announcements from the whole call group. If anyone has something to tell us, please do it now. Press *6 on your phone or click the microphone button. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll just do a last check with Edwina. Is there any final thought that you'd like to share with us?
No, but thank you, everybody. I think we had a very productive call, and we'll certainly be back in November. If anyone has any issues or campaigns that they would like us to work on, or ideas, and they would like to get on the next agenda, please just send Madeline or me an email, and we can certainly work you in, and we can certainly start handling the agenda even before. It's on the international side. We have letters in the queue concerning major issues in Myanmar. We also have a letter ready in the queue for issues in Angola. In the U.S., we sent a letter out just last night with regard to our vaccinations. 48 states give people the right to opt out of these vaccinations that are essential for public health for religious reasons. So we're trying to get the Secretary of HHS to come down on that issue and get with the president, get an executive order, get legislation, whatever it takes. You know, if we had an Ebola virus break out here, then we have so many people that could just opt out of the vaccination. So we need to get these laws in place. So that's what I have, Madeline. Looking forward to next calls and working with everybody in between.
Thank you so much, Edwina. Thanks everyone for being here, and we'll see you again on November 5th.